So let's take a look on some of the data mines, some of the hidden stuff that we had during the patch day and during the week, of course. Some of the stuff that I didn't show or I just briefly mentioned it in some of the videos, but the majority of the stuff is basically stuff that was hidden in the data mines, and thanks to gszabi, we have a light on that. Okay, so I will leave the links in the description for you to help him out. Now let's get going. The first one is that radiators. So of course I need all the parts over here, but yeah, the radiators, right, like these parts, they can overheat the engine, damage the engine. Now if you get shot on, now you can repair them without the parts modification on the tanks, which is pretty cool. Actually, it is a pretty good change. Also, the turret hydraulics, basically, especially in these tanks that we have right now with the all the hydraulic systems and everything, and the pumps and everything that these tanks will have now as a module internally, now will require the parts to be repaired. Okay, so you might lose your turret by some of the hydraulic pumps and whatnot if you get shot in and get these things destroyed as well. We gotta talk about as well the Abrams and the Rapier 2 now have these modules. So the hydraulic pump, for example, here, that if you get this thing destroyed, the turret will get stuck. So not only, of course, the turret basket was added as a damaged thing that you can get destroyed and then you need to fix it to make the turret drive, you know, but the hydraulic pump as well. So you can see on the Abrams there, and if we go to the Rapier 2 over here, it has a hydraulic pump as well, which is in the turret. It's a lot different, but you get the idea, right? So they even say, right, in case of failure, they block the possibility of gun aiming until field repair. So you need to have the hydraulic pump to make this thing work. So they actually added this as a damage thing, which it just makes sense, right? Another change that I mentioned, but I really wanted to talk about again, is that the SUs that have the canards, they now have basically a vapor cloud on the actual canard. So the Sukhois, the Su-33, 34, and Su-30SM have now a vapor cloud, as you see on the canards, which is pretty cool. Another thing is that the PL8B actually got a little bit different than the PL8, the normal one, apart from the IRCCM. So the main thing, of course, here is that it uses an IRCCM, the same one as the R73. So once you get a lock-in, the target, this FOV that it's larger becomes the 0.75 FOV to make you be able to basically ignore all the flares that are, or basically decrease the chances of the missile to actually see a flare or anything like that, right? But they also changed the normal FOV. So before it was 4.5, and I think in the normal PL8 is 4.5, and now it is 3 degrees. So it is a little bit smaller on the before launch kind of, FOV on the IR Seeker. It's barely noticeable with the normal PL8 over here, but you get the idea. So this will change a little bit when you are trying to choose a target. It will be a little bit easier to get a proper lock and not get locks on the flares, and it will be kind of a buff compared to the PL8, apart from the IRCCM of the R73 that the PL8B has. Okay. Another weird thing is that for the F-18A in the files, we do have the Blue Angel skin, but if you take a look here, you cannot see it. So I don't know what they are doing with the Blue Angel skin. Maybe it's gonna be something else, but indeed it is in the files, but it is not added, and it's supposed to be added for the F-18A. In the files, it is for the F-18A. And then we have some changes to the Rapier missile. So we have a Mark 1E that got a slight nerf to it in the terms of basically how much it can actually pull. It's not by much, it really isn't, but it is there. It's kind of a nerf. So will you be able to actually, properly see the difference? Not really. The missile, even though it's the stock missile, can still hit targets very well. In the test flight, for some reason, there are some weird things that make these missiles not kill these targets, which is kind of weird. See, it's just hits and hits. It doesn't do a lot of damage. or nothing of a damage sometimes, but still, it is a slight nerf when you are using the stock missile. But once you are using the Mark II, which is the improved one, it got actually a pretty significant buff. So it actually has a slightly lowered mass after the booster burn, which is good. So lower mass means, I mean, after the booster burn, I mean, it only means much when the missile is climbing, a little bit when the missile is climbing, but everything else, it doesn't mean too much. The booster force got decreased by a little bit, but the booster burn time got increased, and the sustainer got increased in the force, but decreased in the time. Also, it has a little bit less wing, turning capability, just like the same nerf that we had. It's like 1 degree less in the max AOA fin, so it's the same kind of nerf, very small nerf, but then it has an increased max speed of 850 meters per second, which is very good, and also has a max G load of 35 Gs. Before it was the same as the 22.5 of the Mark I, right? So it is a much improved missile overall to be able to do a lot of things. Also, penetration is a little bit better as well. It got buffed. So overall, the Rapier missile, the Mark II especially, the Mark I was kind of nerfed, but the Mark II was... where's the missile? The Mark II was, kind of... I'm not gonna say a significant buff, because you still, see, it doesn't do a lot of damage. It just gets hit. So I don't know if this is happening in a real battle sometimes not. I've tested a little bit and it was kind of fine, but in the test flight it is kind of weird here, right? It doesn't do a lot of damage, but the missile will be able to turn a little bit more. It is a faster missile and it has a different burn time from what it was in the actual dev server. Of course, not really a buff per se, right? It's more or less of a fix of what the missile could actually do. Something that I talked about yesterday about the Harrier T.10, now it has the proper model of it, the Pegasus Mark 107. So yes, it has the 107 engine, which is the best Harrier engine there is for the British Harrier. It's basically the same engine as the AV8B Plus engines, right? But the thing is, we are using it in an aircraft that is significantly heavier and it has more drag. So at the end of the day, still has less performance than the GR7, for example, but it has more power to try to compensate a little bit for that, right? If you didn't have that, it would be a lot worse. Of course, I always wanted to have, for example, the GR7A that has this engine because it would be a lot stronger. It is around 8 to 9 kilonewtons more, so it's more than 1/10 of the power of the thrust of the engine. So it would mean that something like the Harrier GR7 would be the best dogfighting Harrier of the game, right? So it would be very, very cool to have that engine in this aircraft with the GR7A, but they added on the T.10, unfortunately. But let's wait and see. Maybe we will see an A model of the Harrier 2 of the British in the future. At least you can still fly with the AV8B NA, which is, using that same power output and being a little bit lighter than the B Plus and stuff. So the performance-wise, it's kind of like this is the best one. I still believe in the turning capability. The Harrier GR7 is way better, but still, at least in the engine part, we have a lighter version if you have money to buy. The next and one of the final ones is that now in the achievements over here, you can actually preview the vehicle, the Phytos 6 of the event. So you can just go to your name, go to achievements, Rocket Storm, and then preview, and you can check the vehicle out. Of course, you can test drive it and, basically take a look on the vehicle, see what it is capable of. If you are planning on selling it or keeping it, whatever, you can actually take a look on it, okay? And the final change is that they actually fixed how the TWS was kind of working, especially the TWS Plus. So it was kind of, even though it was doing a very quick TWS update, it feels like they have a little bit more of a less bugged, TWS redetection of the targets in these aircraft. So it's a lot of aircraft that have this system, but basically every aircraft that has the TWS Plus and some others that don't as well, I think I have to check, but will have a better TWS kind of detection parameter here, and it will be a little bit easier to use TWS in general for these aircraft. Okay, of course, nothing compared to the Electronics Canada Ray radars, but it's still a lot better. You can see that although it is needing the updates and it takes a little bit to get the update, it is quick enough so that it can actually stay, you know, on that kind of detection on where the target was. Okay, but basically this is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe. I know it's nothing too crazy, too important. Of course, after the update, things quiet down a little bit. I'm trying to bring new ideas to the channel as well as soon as I can. We have the 50,000 subscribers special video coming up. I don't know when. I was actually going to make it in the in a very cool event of Formula 1. I was just going to go there and show a little bit of Brazil, but then I got really sick in that day, like really sick. I was almost going to the hospital. I don't know what I just caught, and I was really like, oh my god, it was really bad. But then in the next day I was almost fine, and then the day after that I was 100% again. So yeah, I ended up just being fine, but in the day that I was the most sick, it was the day that I was going to record that video, so I ended up not recording it, okay? So just bear that in mind. It was before the patch was released last weekend, but you get the idea, right? So I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and see you guys on the next one. Bye guys, see ya.